Thanks for listening to Creative Control. While I have you here, please consider supporting Youth Empowerment and Support Services, otherwise known as YES. Based in Edmonton, Alberta, YES provides immediate and low-barrier overnight and day shelter, temporary supportive housing, and individualized wraparound supports for young people aged 15 to 24. They work collaboratively within a network of care focused on the prevention of youth homelessness by providing youth with the necessary supports to stabilize their housing, improve their well-being, build life skills, connect with community, and avoid re-entry into homelessness. Learn more about how to donate or otherwise support YES by visiting yess.org.
Hi, I'm Jed Bodwin, and I live in Wichita, Kansas. I am a Patreon supporter for Creative Control. I discovered Creative Control some years ago, I think maybe while looking for interviews with Tommy Stinson of The Replacements. And I stumbled across this conversation that Vish had with Tommy Stinson that was really insightful. Vish held his own. I think Tommy can be a little bit of a difficult interview at times. And it went really well, and it really got into some areas that I wasn't expecting. And I thought, gosh, I have to listen to more of this guy and his podcast. Yeah, sometimes I'm not necessarily a fan of the music or musicians that Vish will have on the show, but I always appreciate their creative process a little bit more, and more times than not, though, it does lead me to finding a new musical artist that I'm interested in, or to think a little bit differently about maybe some artists whose work I've overlooked. So, go ahead, and if you've been waiting at all to support Vish and Creative Control, now is probably the best time to do it. I know as a public radio employee here in Kansas, listener-supported broadcasting, whether it's podcasts or radio itself, really isn't a thing of the past. It's actually very much a thing of both the present and the future. So, yay Vish, yay Creative Control.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today.
Julianna Riolino is a tremendously gifted lyricist, singer, and musician based in Southern Ontario in Canada. A crucial and striking member of Daniel Romano's outfit, Riolino is also a solo artist in her own right, steeped particularly in country music and classic pop idioms. On October 14th, 2022, You've Changed Records released one of the finest records of the year with All Blue, Riolino's stunning, multi-layered, and star-studded debut album. And so, Julianna and I connected for our first ever in-depth conversation where we covered things like what it was like growing up in Welland, Ontario, how her parents introduced her to music via theatrical musicals, loving The Who, her tremendous presence as a live performer, embracing and exploring rather timeless genres, and how some might be easier to age gracefully into than others. Tangential ponderings of people like Emmylou Harris, Jay-Z, Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, George Harrison, Paul McCartney, and John Lennon. The evocative and occasionally scientific lyrical wordplay on All Blue, its sound, and the deeply reflective nature of this album, spirituality and morality, future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it, and make generous, flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control to keep this podcast going, plus in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. This is episode 724 of Creative Control, featuring the brilliant and lovely Julianna Riolino, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Julianna. How are you?
Good, Vish. How are you?
I'm well. It's nice to see you and speak with you. Where in the world are you today?
I'm in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, St. Catharines, Ontario. What brings you to St. Catharines?
Well, I'm at Kenneth Roy Meehan's house. He's been kind enough to engineer this whole thing for me. I live in the country, so my Wi-Fi is dismal at best.
I see. What part of the country do you live in exactly? Where do you live?
We live in Ridgeville, Ontario. It's about 10 minutes up the road from St. Catharines.
Okay, so you're not in Welland at all.
No.
Really.
No,
Okay.
we're close to Welland. I grew up in Welland.
Oh, you grew up. That's where you grew up. See,
Yeah.
I for those wondering why I brought up Welland, often your colleague Daniel Romano is on the show, and he is based just outside of Welland. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we're about 8 minutes away from one another. He's also in the country-ish. He's in.
Right.
He's 8 minutes up the road. We're all kind of in between each other.
Right. So you grew up in Welland. Did you know Daniel growing up?
I did, kind of on the periphery. He is a couple 2-3 years older than me, so we ran in different circles, but the same circles because we were both involved in music.
Right. Okay. Because I'll tell you this, Julianna. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you about your own record. But I believe the first time I encountered you on stage was at an outfit show, and I believe for me it was a really significant one. I think potentially the first and only time I've seen you perform with the outfit was opening for the Sadies at Lee's Palace in 2019. Was that an early show for you even?
I mean, yeah, I think we had... My first show with the outfit was Maddie Fest, actually. So, I don't know.
It's a festival in Toronto.
Yeah, festival in Toronto. Yeah, I guess it was still kind of early days. I think we had done like an East Coast tour, and yeah, so it was early days-ish.
Yeah. All I wanted to say is it stuck out for me. It was a fantastic show, even by some of the Sadies accounts. That night, you really kind of blew everyone away. Maybe blew them off the stage, which is not an easy feat with the Sadies. But that was by some. That was. I will say I'm not picking sides. At least one Sadie told me that they were like, "Holy shit!" And it was a holy shit moment for me too, because I've seen Daniel play in all sorts of configurations. But yeah, that outfit band that night, something else. But what I also want to say beyond the whole band was you stuck out for me. I instantly was like, "Who in the hell is this?" Because you were really giving it, and it was really fun.
God.
Yeah, I really love your live performances is all I'm getting at.
Thank you.
So prior to connecting with the outfit, you made music on your own? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. I have sort of been playing and writing my own songs since, end of high school, like teen years. I would say I really got into it. I taught myself guitar and figured out a way to put all the melodies in my head to song. So that's probably when I started doing it. And yeah.
So around high school, do you know what your entry point was? Was there a lot of singing in your upbringing or anything like that?
Not really, actually. Neither of my parents are musical, although they are lovers of music, but nobody else in my family sings. I just kind of took to it. I don't know if it was, I think my earliest memory of singing is my parents went to go see Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, starring Donny Osmond.
Oh, wow.
And they brought the CD home. They brought me like home a shirt and a CD, and I like listened to that CD every single day until eventually they took me to go see it. And they had to like sit me down before the show and be like, "Okay, Julianna, there are a lot of people paying a lot of money to see Donny Osmond perform and sing, so you have to do your best not to sing." And I was maybe like 6 or 7, and I was just like I couldn't contain myself, I remembered. But I was like so young, everyone just thought it was cute, so I got away with it.
It's I've tried to do my best with my children to bring them to things and let them see things and listen to things. So I think that's I hope. It sounds like for you, anyway, I can't speak to what's going to happen with my kids, but it sounds like for you it was a very formative thing to have your parents bring you to such a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's my earliest memory. I think I've always, you know, you play music around your kids and they either take to it or react to it or not.
Yeah.
And I think I probably reacted in a really positive way and showed an interest. So my parents just kind of, you know, cultivated that desire, I guess.
Now, so when your parents guide you in any way, when you're young, you might initially be all in, but at some point you develop just, I think, over in an evolutionary sense, you start to rebel a little bit. Did you have older friends or cousins or siblings or anything like that who were like, yeah, Donny Osmond's just fine, but let me show you the real shit. There's some whole other...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have that?
Yeah, I mean, I have an older sister, and she played bass. So she played bass, I played guitar. We never started a band. It was always like just our separate little things that we did, which is odd when I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was like super into like heavier music, I guess. So I kind of would just hop on. Also, we grew up, you know, I'm from the generation of like LimeWire.
Oh, yeah.
And,
right.
you know, like downloading music. So you kind of, which, you know, is bad when you think about it. But
was the gateway for everything we're going through right now.
Totally. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think, you know, definitely my older sister, and I think just having like access to like a giant database of music, you just kind of, I remember just kind of like falling into things and finding things that I liked. Yeah.
So when you talk about the LimeWire and your sister and the influences there, are there any particular artists that come to mind from that period? Because for those of us who have been more recently exposed to you and your work, you definitely seem to be a huge fan of country music. And I would say you probably are a country artist based on this brilliant record, All Blue. But I also want to get into this with you because I think I'm quite astounded by not only the lyrics, but just the language choices. They're really interesting to me, and I want to ask you about that in a bit. But country music, was that your first LimeWire thing, or was there other stuff?
I don't remember. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to like rack my brain. I think, okay, I will say my rock and roll, like spiritual awakening moment. Like, you know, I think Broadway music, like musicals, was like when I was like a really young kid. And then I think from the years of like, you know, 10 to now, it started off with The Who, I would say. My dad was a huge Who fan. And I remember him playing their records and me just being like, what is this? Like having the biggest crush on Pete Townsend and like every single member of the band in their own way and being like, that's what I want to do, you know? That's sweet.
You know, it's funny you brought this up because I was watching a bit of this and I talked to your friend and mine there, Dan Romano, was on the show some weeks ago to talk about this great new record of yours, La Luna. But anyway, I had referenced this live at Lee's performance video that was released while you guys were all stuck in Europe with the COVID. And the first two songs, it's Toulouse and, sorry, is it Anyone's Arms? Is that the other one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah.
Is that,
Anyone's Arms into Toulouse.
Right, there's a medley.
Yeah.
I think the Who in particular, as I think on it, from the earliest parts of the band's history, they seemed really interested in kind of review style performance. So like songs melding into one another, creating a real show. And when I think of the outfit, I can see like, you know, with Dan in particular, people have been trying to kind of pigeonhole where the influences are. And I think sometimes he's worn them on his sleeves a little bit. And now I feel like it's just all over the place. with it the punk and the rock and the country and all those sorts of things. But anyway, yeah, I just want to say that. Like, I feel like you maybe, if the Who is a common interest, maybe they're influencing the live show a little bit. Is that fair?
I would say that's fair. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think the point is also, I mean, you look at any rock and roll band throughout history, like Stones, The Who, you know, like anything like that, we're down with.
Well, there's the showmanship is what I'm kind of getting to. It's not just the great records. It's actually like, how do we bring this to the stage? Yeah. And I feel like that has really been heightened. And again, watching the Live at Lee's video, I am compelled and mesmerized by you in particular. You are just a great stage presence. So beyond the singing, let's just get to this right away. As a performer, what are you drawn from there? Because you seem like the happiest person ever to be on stage sometimes, that's my take on it. Like this.
Yeah. I mean, I am really happy to be on stage. I would say what fuels me is anxiety.
Interesting.
I feel like throughout the years, I have figured out a way to harness the anxiety and use it to my advantage, I think.
Well, it's true. I think sometimes bravado is the product of insecurity and anxiety. That's true. We see this with the animals, right? The animals that say, "Arr!"
Yeah.
They're actually scared. They seem like they're going to attack you, but they're actually afraid of you. Yeah. And so I'm not saying that's you, but I can see that. It's nervous energy.
I'm just expelling that nervous energy, you know? I'm not necessarily nervous. Like, it's just up until the moment I get on stage. And then I'm on stage and I'm fine, you know?
That's exactly true. Yeah. I mean, in my experience as a performer performing, that's true. As soon as you get going, it feels normal. But up until then, it's weird. Well, anyway, you're just fantastic at the performing, and I want to talk to you about these songs. Now, first of all, though, before we get to All Blue, I alluded to the fact that you have been making music prior to the outfit, and I think even since you've been in the outfit, I mean, obviously you're in it right now. Did you used to go as JR, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I went as JR, and then I realized that, well, I've always been kind of scared of using my full name because, we mentioned it, I think, before. It's a mouthful, and a lot of people look at it because there's a lot of vowels in it, and it's very easily mispronounced. So I was trying to shorten it, but then somewhere along the lines, I figured it was time to embrace my name and go for it.
Probably a little of that insecurity that you're talking about creeping in there too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I used JR when I released my EP, and that was kind of when I was playing music. I was making music with my friends in Welland when I was like 17 to 20, I would say. And then I just kind of had to take a break from it and distance myself. So my EP was like my first kind of introduction back into that world after a few years off. Yeah. Trying to find myself or whatever.
Right. Know? Yeah. Okay, so now you feel, I mean, no one feels fully formed. We're all works in progress, I would argue, but are you feeling like, okay, this is me fully formed for now?
Yeah, for sure.
Fully realized.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll see. This is All Blue is the version of me when I recorded All Blue.
Which was when again?
That was August 2020.
Oh, wow, we're going back a couple of years.
Oh, so yeah.
It's been a while. So before, I usually save this sort of for the end of the call or the chat. Do you feel like you're already moving on from this sound and this sort of approach, or in your new work? I mean, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think there are always going to be similarities because I think that people fall back on what feels familiar. I mean, some people, at least I think I realize that in myself, but definitely my interests have changed sonically, vocally, in a way. I feel more sure of myself. Even in writing, like in my lyricism, like it's, I don't know. I think I think change is inevitable.
Yeah.
I think if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not really learning and growing. So I
Fair
hope
enough.
that my next record is different.
Okay.
And I have ideas for that, but I'm gonna keep a tight lip on it.
You never know what's going to happen until you actually start making a thing like that.
Exactly, and that's another thing I've realized. Like, you can have an idea in its earliest stages, and it sounds one way, and then you get into a room with people, and it completely transforms and becomes something entirely different, which is one of the things I really love about recording and music.
Yeah, creating things with other people too. Because
Yeah.
someone will just say, why don't you make that bridge the chorus? And you're like, what? No. And then you think about it, you're like, oh, you actually just saved the song and I didn't even know it, right?
Yeah.
I think that can happen. I feel like we talked a little bit about some of your rock influences, but I don't recall if I mentioned and invoked country music.
Yes.
But I don't actually know if we landed on why that particular idiom speaks to you, how it started to speak to you, rather. I think it's speaking to you. I can tell by all the music you've been making.
Yeah.
But what was it about country that spoke to you? Can you get at that a little bit?
Well, yeah, I guess so. I think there's an honestness in country music, kind of really matter-of-fact way of communicating to the listener that always resonated with me. I hope it's evident. I kind of like wordplay, whether or not I'm like cognizant of doing it or not. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's just what connected with me. The really tight harmonies, the down-to-earthness.
Does seem authentic. Yeah, it seems like it's real.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting point you're raising, and I don't know how you're going to take this because I'm still wrestling with it. I think we've been living, a lot of us anyway, and as a culture, with certain musical expressions that sort of take on these generic forms some of them for a long time. Let's say, it's 2020. Let's say 70, 80 years, certain idioms have sort of developed, and, the things developed from the blues and folk, and here we are from all sorts of traditions. But I feel like, and this is going to be potentially controversial, I don't know if it's just because they're so old, but some genres appear more timeless in the year 2022, as we're speaking right now. Mm-hmm. I think there are certain genres that you can age into as a performer a little more gracefully. Meaning, there are songs you could probably sing that you wrote when you were 20 and perform when you're 80, and they kind of would still work. You're not. They might work irrespective of what other trends and things are going on. And again, I'm trying to couch this because we've lived with some of these longer than others. Because I sometimes think of some of the hip hop people I like, and I wonder how they're going to do it. For some reason, it just always occurs to me, like, is Jay-Z going to be 60?
Yeah.
And doing this? Like, he's done it at 50.
Yeah.
But is he going to keep doing this? Would the Beastie Boys still be able to hop around and call themselves the Beastie Boys if, obviously, sadly, we lost Adam Yauch. For me, it's sad. And for lots of people,
it's sad too, yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is, I don't mean to pick on that music, but it's a newer form, and it really is youth-oriented. Like, it's really an expression, or it seems to be anyway, an expression of sort of youthful irreverence. Whereas country music, because we've lived with it for so long, you could potentially play it for your grandmother, or your grandfather, or whoever, and they'd be like, oh, this reminds me of the time I saw Hank Snow at the Opry, and you'd be like, right. But anyway, I don't know if this is a question per se, but I wonder about younger artists who end up in these realms because it meant something to their parents or their grandparents or their great-grandparents, and you heard stories and you sort of gravitate towards this music, and it works intergenerationally maybe a little bit more than like an EDM track might.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure.
So again, I don't know if this is a question per se, but does that occur to you? Like, I doubt I assume this is all very organic for you.
Yeah, it is. Very much so. Yeah, I mean, you raise a very interesting question.
Point. Yeah, I'm not sure what my point was. I just wanted to go on a ramble, which happens with me.
I mean, I kind of hope Jay-Z is performing at 60.
Yeah, I do too.
And still making music.
Yeah, I do too. It's just to me a younger form.
Right.
And to be stunting
Yeah.
like a young person at 60, like, you know, we see it all the time. There's a certain ageism. Okay, here's an example. I know your partner, Roddy, right? What is Roddy to you? He's your husband?
He's my husband. Yeah.
Husband, yeah. And he plays with you in the outfit, and he's on this record,
Yes.
which, again, we're going to get to in a second. Roddy, huge Bob Dylan fan, right?
Oh my God. The biggest.
Yeah, like me, a huge Bob Dylan fan,
Yeah.
and probably like me, has been seeing him live for as long as he can.
Yeah.
And what an inspiring thing this guy, like this, he's
Oh
80.
my God. We
as
saw
speak-
him. We saw him perform. When was that? He was in West Virginia. November? Was it November? I don't know. I can't remember.
Last year?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually go see him if he's in Ontario or nearby. I just go on a little pilgrimage, and I go to as many shows as I can. So I'm
Yeah.
really I didn't go for pandemic reasons. I did not
Yeah.
go on a road trip to any, and he wasn't near me, so I would have had to fly and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Anyway, I love him, and here's an example of someone who is still singing the same songs he wrote 50, 60 years ago, whatever it's been. I lose track of time sometimes, and but changing them. Changing them, and so they're timeless in a sense, but I think he's also arrived at a fact that it can be anything.
Yes.
Which is a bit of an escape route from context and temporality. Like, this is the arrangement for this song I wrote in 1965 now. Like, I've just altered it. This is the way I sing it. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And so maybe as you get older, if you're someone who's in a younger musical form, you adapt. But
Yes. I think that's a way of keeping things fresh and relatable to where you're at in your life.
yeah,
I mean, how long has Bob Dylan been playing, like a Rolling Stone,
yeah, yeah.
for forever? How old is he now? He's 80?
He's 82.
82.
No, sorry.
Holy-
Sorry. He's 81 as we're speaking right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You were like, oh, that's okay. 82 is too.
82?
That is a bridge too far,
Whoa.
Mr. Dylan. Yeah.
81?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all I'm getting at, though, is I think sometimes, I'm sure you've gotten this, when a younger person like yourself is exploring a relatively ancient genre, you might get a little eyebrow raise or side eye from an older person being like,
Yeah.
huh? Do you get that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, don't we all? It's so funny when every single time, if I'm in a room with an older person and they realize I love Patsy Cline or the Everly Brothers or Emmylou Harris or whatever, Dolly Parton, the list goes on. They're like, "Well, you're too young to know that."
Yeah,
That's always the line.
Yeah.
It's like, no, no one's too young, no one's too old to know anything. We have the internet.
Well, I will say, though,
and the world at our fingertips.
I will say, imagine being young and brown and being into country music.
Yeah.
Because I got to
I'm sure
I got to Edmonton and I met someone who's maybe 25 years on me, maybe more. And she was talking about the Holy Road. She was referencing someone in the Holy Modal Rounders. And I said, "Oh, from the Holy Modal Rounders." And she, like, her eyes, she's like, "Why? How would you know that?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Wait a minute.
you can know things from everywhere." Yeah, you're right. It's not just the internet, though. Well, maybe it is.
Well, it's not just the internet.
Yeah.
It's just, you find things. I think your music interest it cultivates in such an organic way. Everyone gravitates to, like, the things that they like to listen to. So I think it's only natural that, like, if you want to find something, it'll find you or you will find it. I don't know.
No, that's fair. I appreciate where you're coming from, and I didn't mean to bog us down in this. Sometimes I end up just espousing tips and theories.
I don't feel bogged down at all.
Okay, good. Well, I
to
appreciate
go back
that.
to your Jay-Z theory and whatever, I think there's also a point I want to raise that all of Jay-Z's fans are maybe also 60-year-olds.
Well, and I don't mean to be raucous about this. It's just
Yeah.
we used to hear it more about the Stones.
Yeah.
Like, when are they going to stop? How much money is enough money?
Yeah.
And I went to see them a few years ago. I want to say it was 2018 in some big field in Ontario, and it was great. And all I thought all my cynicism melted away because I saw people who'd known each other for decades, smiling at each other, just touching each other, like just watching Keith or Mick or Ron Wood sort of just glancing hands on shoulders with Charlie Watts and whoever, like, look at this. Isn't this amazing? We're still here.
Yeah.
And so all of that ageism and rockism, or ageism rather, that might have been percolating as in any of us, like, can you believe these guys are still gone? I think the joy of doing this is timeless in itself.
Yeah.
But I do think people are less like, how is AC/DC and the Rolling Stones going to keep doing this? Because those idioms are just so old. And I mean, they've obviously copped blues idioms, but I'm not this person. I want the hip hop I love. I just think it's young, and I don't know why I'm so focused on it, but I just think in the context of a young person making kind of a music that is older, it's just worth thinking about. Yeah, because you could. I mean, it depends what happens in 60 years, 50 years. Maybe it will be completely out of style for you to be doing this, and you'll seem
I mean, who knows? I try to have my finger on the pulse of what is popular these days, and then it just ends up depressing me. So
well, you shouldn't be depressed. You're right on the vanguard. I think this record is great. I want to ask you some questions about, in an overarching sense, what these songs kind of encapsulate for you, because I feel like there's some pent up emotion and sentiment here, because you've been waiting to present yourself as fully realized. It seems very reflective of, I don't want to say there's regret in it, but I go through this sometimes when I can't sleep. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have talked more to that person in high school.
Right.
Oh, why was I a jerk to that person in university? Are you reflecting upon relationships that did and didn't occur here?
Oh yeah, 100%. I am also that type of person that like lays awake at night and like thinks about the one time I said, like, I'll probably be laying awake at night being like, did I say the right things to Vish? You know, like,
sorry, you did.
No.
Well, cut it off at the pass. You did. You absolutely did. Yeah. No.
Right.
No, I have that too, for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a reflective record in that regard.
I toil, and I'm a highly empathetic person who feels a lot. And I can sort of tap into any emotion by just thinking about something or reflecting on an experience that either happened to me personally or to somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that's my secret weapon. Like, I hate to say, you know, the songs are about this specific person, because they're not really at the end of the day. Like, I mean,
I think they're about you.
Yeah.
The very first line of this record, from the first song, I believe, and the thing that I was sent, is "If I Knew Now."
Yeah.
And the first line is, "If I knew now what I did not know then," which is sort of a cliche on the one hand, or it's something that hindsight is 2020. But I feel like that one line kind of encapsulates where we are with this record and where you're at with this record, and realizing it is really a lot about you, even though you have a song called "You." This is a really record about yourself. It's about me, Julianna, kind of thing. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a tendency of, I put blinders on. I don't really want to think about it. I don't really want to get too in depth with, I didn't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I didn't really know what it was about. I was just writing these songs as a way to, like, you know, cope with these, you know, feelings of reflection and trying to communicate with others and myself, I guess. So, you know, as we get further down the line and you know, the record's finally coming out and everything, it's interesting to hear how other people, you know, interpret the album.
I appreciate you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just think that's an astute observation.
Well,
like,
I appreciate your self-awareness and your feeling that you are empathetic, because I do think in sort of delving into, there's a lot of stuff here just about delving into your own mind. And quite literally, like in the song "Isn't It a Pity," which, by the way, for those who haven't heard it yet, the first two lines reference the George Harrison song, I think.
Yeah.
isn't it a pity? Isn't it a shame? Like that's what he says in that song. You're a George Harrison fan? Are you a George person?
Oh yeah, George was my favorite Beatle for a really long time, and now I don't know. It rotates quite a bit.
You were going to say Paul, weren't you?
I've been super into Paul lately, and
people are always. I could tell by the sound and look on your face just now, because people still there's a sheepish.
Oh yeah.
I don't. I grew up a John Lennon fan hugely, because when you're a young child and you discover the Beatles, when I was like 6 years old or something, I think that's right. My cousin played me a Beatles tape, and I was just hooked. And when I got hooked on the Beatles, I read every book and I got every magazine and I watched every documentary I could get my hands on. Can you imagine being 6 or 7 years old and discovering that one of the Beatles was shot dead? Like,
oh my God.
Like the
How do you even process that?
What I'm saying is I was just presented with this information and accepted it as a thing that happened, I think. But it was like, okay, well, that's my guy. The guy who's gone. I'm so sad about it. Anyway, when you become a John Lennon guy, you instantly develop a slight revulsion to Paul because of the narrative.
Right.
But then, if you read more stuff, or you read like, have you ever read Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles engineer Jeff Emmerich?
No, I have not.
My God! First of all, you should read that. Absolutely. If you want, I can mail you my copy just so you can get it. But I found it, and it's great. But it's a very interesting take. He engineered basically all their records, except for the ones where they, in the late 60s, were like, oh, we don't need other people. George Martin doesn't even do anything. Like, they had this weird attitude for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, slags George constantly.
Yeah.
Slags George is just like, can't do, like, how many times do we have to go through this solo? How many times, blah, blah, which was shocking to me because I'm a big George guy, too.
Yeah.
But just interestingly, there are some Paul apologists, no pun intended. But it is fascinating how much he drove. I just was John liked the edgy stuff, Paul liked the mainstream pop stuff, right? That's what we're. But have you learned what I'm getting at? Is have you learned that this is some revisionist history?
Oh yeah.
And that Paul was actually the driving force in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, he was the glue that kept everything together. He was like the workhorse. If it wasn't for Paul, after Brian Epstein died.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Paul, I think they would have fallen apart a lot sooner. I've recently, I always grew up listening to the Beatles, and I think that I took to George because, I had this I was believing that, that narrative that was so surface level, about Paul and John Lennon. And I thought, I always liked the black sheep of the underdog,
The quiet one, literally the quiet one, yeah.
Yeah, the quiet one. So I had a special place in my heart for George, but I have recently gotten really into Paul McCartney, and I've had some pretty huge debates with certain people who were like, have that kind of like, oh, Paul sucks, and I just go,
I don't think so. I think if you look at the 70s, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I have the John Lennon box set, and I have the George Harrison vinyl box sets. They're quite uneven. I will say that. If I can be objective, I'm a diehard fan, but if I can be objective, Paul was focused and was goal-oriented, and I can understand in our sort of punk way why we would reject that. Yeah. But I also think there's such craftsmanship there that has been lost. Anyway, this was a weird... and also just I will say, for my part, finally, the Get Back movie solidified a lot of things, too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought George came across very poorly. I don't think it was tricks of editing. He was sullen.
Yep.
It was bad. John is obviously high as a kite. And Paul's just struggling to be like, what do I do?
Yeah, please, everybody, please.
Yes. And it's quite clear. I don't think it's biased. I think it's right. I think it's right. It's right there. Anyway, where I was coming from with the brain stuff is that you do this amazing thing. Where did this come from? A wily old cadaver, a velvet swinging hammer, a windmill of a force is what keeps us both apart. Caught up in your membrane, amoeba cradled shell. I am crying on the inside like a water swells. That's about someone's brain, and mind, I think. That's right? First of all, I didn't do well in biology in high school. I think that's what's going on there. That's a really remarkable way. Where did this all... Sorry, this is what I was getting to earlier. I said something to my wife the other yesterday. What song is it? Where you say something so strange to me that I had to look it up. I'll think of it in a second. Can you talk about that line? Where did that come from?
When you say that, when you just quoted those lyrics back to me, I was like, wow, what? What?
Not what I'm coming from is that's not typical to me.
Yeah.
That is not stereotypical country music fare. That is really fascinating imagery to put across ideas we have dealt with for decades, centuries. The human heart, the human mind, the emotions and the passion. You're doing it in such a interesting... And by the way, for those who just heard that, it's sung so beautifully that the clinicalness of it or whatever, the coldness of that sort of scientific aspects just don't even register. But when I looked at them on the page, I'm like, what in the hell? Where did she come up with this? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you. I kind of slip into this when I'm writing songs, and sometimes they start off as poems, and, I typically all of my lyrics come to me right before I'm about to go to sleep.
Huh.
And I don't know if that was the case for this song, but I guess what I'm trying to get to is I just let go of thought and just feel. And that sounds very cliche, but that's all. That's the only way I know how to explain it. I'm not aware of it. I just kind of write the words and then look at it and try to make sense of it, make some changes, and then then you get the lyrics to "Isn't It a Pity?"
Beyond probably reading books and studying lyrics, do you have any kind of English studies background?
No.
Okay, here's the thing I want to read. You got this amazing song, "You," which has kind of almost a Motown. I want to say Phil Spector, but I know he's kind of persona non grata. But got that kind of vibe. Listen to this. A question. Intonate the sentence you're about to grow. Reveal it. I dreamt about you holding me 9 months ago. Holy shit. So I was like, intonate the sentence you're about to grow. 9 months ago, there's some, baby stuff, I would say, going on.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that is an incredible sequence of words in this otherwise very rambunctious pop song, ostensibly. It seems purposeful to me. You're gonna make some sugary confection for us to love, but you're gonna put a lot of thought and density, I think, a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, I don't mean to. This keeps happening to me. I embarrass people with flattery, or I know it can be awkward to have someone say, "Holy shit, your stuff is good." I just had this experience yesterday, and I had a band on, and I love their new record so much that I couldn't help saying this. And similarly, I was just like, I'm a real word person. I love lyrical attention. I like people so the detail here is really fascinating to me. That's all I want to get to. What are you using? Bruce Springsteen, who I think is invoked on a couple of the guitar solos on this record, by the way, reminds me of Darkness on the Edge of Town stuff or whatever. Anyway, he used to use in the early days a rhyming dictionary.
Right.
To write those. If you listen to Blinded by the Light, that's quite apparent now.
Yeah.
And on the early records, but I don't know. You just have a strong vocabulary, because I have 2 English degrees, and I had to look. I'm like, I got to look up what the hell Julianna's talking about here. I don't know what these words are.
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. You're, saying that. Yeah, I can't take compliments. It's something I need to work on.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Roddy's the same too. I try to it just goes south every time. But yeah, I grew up. So on my mom's side, they're all kind of English buffs. So maybe that's the link there.
Scrabble? Did you play a lot of Scrabble?
I love Scrabble.
I can tell. There's some Scrabble words here. You'd get triple word scores on a
Yeah.
couple of these.
I love Scrabble. Yeah. No, I would just say like my family, my uncle's a writer, and my aunt was a journalist as well.
Come on. There you go. That's it.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe.
Did you read a lot? Were you an avid reader as a child, or now even?
I was an avid reader as a child. I wish that I try to make an effort to read more. My attention span and my schedule is insane. So, and I'm not the type of person that I can't read in a car. I don't know about you, but
I get dizzy.
Me too. I get like car sick.
Yeah, I get disoriented. I can't do it. I can kind of do it. I can do it on airplanes, but I can't do it in cars. Something about them. I get motion sick or something, and I can't shake it. Like I'm like, oh, it's happening. Or my phone even. I'm like, Then I put it away. I'm like, it takes like forever for it to go away. So I agree. It's a real, and that's got to be shitty as a touring musician to not be able to do that.
Well, yeah. There's lots of long drives. So I try. I've been, I started reading. This is going to sound insane. The Iliad again. Mm-hmm. I read it in university, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to read it again and try to like really, really take away something from it, with this new perspective I have on life. And, just to see if it hits me in a different way, I guess.
So wait a minute, just a second here. Sorry. What did you study at university?
I went to university for visual arts.
Oh, okay.
And I had a liberal arts class, so that's where that came.
So you took some English classes?
Yes.
Probably. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Liberal arts.
Got it. Okay, I got it. I feel like there's something going on. I can tell you're a lover of language by your lyrics, and I can appreciate that. This might be out of left field, but I picked up on something throughout the songs here. And by the time you get to Thistle and Thorn, it's, for me, more evident. Is the church or religion or spirituality, is that something that guides you in any particular way?
How should I put this? I guess so. I mean, I'm not like, I'm not a religious person. I don't know if this is, I don't believe there's like an omnipotent being casting judgment on everybody from up in the sky. I don't even know if there's a heaven or a hell. I guess I believe in spirituality in the sense that like these are stories that are supposed to somehow reflect or help people navigate morality and being a better person and trying to do the right thing.
I appreciate your relative candor, your guarded candor there. I highlighted Thistle and Thorn. Like the one thing about spirituality or religious texts is some of the stories are quite interesting. Mm-hmm. And I think as someone, I gather you like stories and storytelling. So I mentioned Thistle and Thorn because I read it as some sort of approximation of trying to ponder the story of Jesus Christ, if you will. Am I out of left field with this?
I mean, yeah, sort of. I've never heard that perspective. I don't think that I went into writing that with that perspective. Like
sticky old fingers caressing a bleed, flowing carelessly over a self-righteous being. It's a heavy weight. It's thistle, it's thorn. It's everything wanting. What you heed not be warned. It's a heavy weight.
Yeah, totally. I wrote that during, like, right when we got home from tour. I started writing that while we were on tour. We were on tour with the outfit in the States when everything hit the fan. And, I think I had issues with how the world was reacting to coronavirus and the pandemic, and how foolish everyone was in terms of like, not wanting to keep everybody safe and being kind of naive about everything. So that I guess whatever that feeling is, I mean, hopelessness, resentment, just feeling like, there are certain people in this life that feel like they're more important than others.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think religion has been weaponized for a long time in this regard. So I can see you trying to be careful negotiating that.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a religious household. My parents raised us going to church. And I went to a Catholic high school. So,
Okay.
All
right. Yeah.
And, then to cap it off, I worked as a in stained glass restoration in churches, restoring beautiful, huge windows that, every single window you see in a church, I mean, maybe not every single one, but, depicts, Cain and Abel or, David and Goliath or the crucifixion,
Yeah.
It's those stories surrounded me for quite some time. So it's always kind of followed me, but I believe in spirituality, whether it be, if you want to be a Buddhist, if you want to be if you're into Hinduism, if you're a whatever floats your boat.
No, I don't think it's so subtle and personal. I don't think you're proselytizing or anything, but there are certainly references. There's a song called Archangel. There's references to celestial beings. There's references to Psalms. So just gently, everything you've just said then, I think validates my question. I feel like however you're now processing it and conveying it, you're somewhat steeped in this kind of vernacular and this kind of thought, and you're processing it given the state of our existence right now. Is that
Definitely.
Okay, then I think we've solved that one. Thank you, Jules. I appreciate it very much.
Case closed.
Well, listen, I don't want to ruin the record for anyone. I worry sometimes that I go into such detail, or we do, my guests and I, but I just want to say, to sort of sum up, it's a wonderful record. It's a great sounding record, too. You've got some outfit members, some guests, pretty amazing band. Did you want to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah. Well, Aaron Goldstein produced the record. We did it at Baldwin Street Sound in Toronto, which is, I guess, now shuttered. It's no longer, which is sad, but whatever happens. And so it was nice to have done this with Goldstein. It was nice to have, Ian played drums. I had Jason Bhattacharya. He played with me before. He played on my EP, so I had him in doing some stuff as well. And we had Gavel because at the time, Roddy couldn't get over the border.
Oh, right.
So we had Gavel come in, and he did an amazing job. He's he's a professional. So
on bass. So Roddy, your husband, would normally play bass, but he couldn't.
Yes.
Stuck in Virginia or something like that?
He was stuck in Virginia, but he did play on a few of the tracks. So we kind of split it up and made sure that we had him on because he's the best. Yeah.
And my friend Tom Hammerton's playing the keys, doing a great job. Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, when that was probably one of my favorite days because when he added his touch on everything, it livened it up in a way that I guess I hadn't anticipated, or I didn't really fully know what was going to happen.
Well, I just want to say, again, I wanted to talk to you. I want to give people an impression of this record, but they need to check it out. So I'm very excited that you made time for me. If people want to learn more about you and All Blue, where would you like to send them, Julianna?
You should go to You've Changed Records. You should order the record. You can also go to my Bandcamp, and you can order the record there. And I have some merch there too, if you want. So.
And you're on some socials?
Oh yeah, Julianna Riolino official on Instagram.
Official, that's good.
Just in case there's any other Julianna Riolinos out there.
Everyone's getting hacked, and all sorts of fake accounts are coming up now. You're right to do the official.
Yeah.
I mean that's ironclad. No one can dispute that. It says official.
It says official. I don't have the check mark. I don't know if I believe in the check mark.
Yeah.
But
No, it's great. And future plans at this point? We talked earlier about how you're still mulling over new songs.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got outfit touring always, it seems like. What about yourself? Are you going to bring these songs to the stage, so to speak?
Oh, I hope so. Right now I'm working on doing like a small run of shows in Ontario and Quebec in December, early December. And then from there, depending on what our schedule's like, coming up with the outfit, kind of sandwiching little tours in between then, but nothing's confirmed yet. But it's in the works.
It's in the works. I know that, and I don't mean to get into anyone's business, but I've noticed that with the release of Carson McCone's record, Carson also in the outfit, Dan Romano's wife, I've noticed a lot of shared bills because a lot of the band on the, well, Dan and Carson were the band. So I think some of the outfit, you can tell me what's going on, but I believe some of the outfit is basically backing Carson up. Is that right?
Yeah, we all do. So we go on stage with her, we open the show, and then finish up, change our clothes, which seems ridiculous, but I also think it's so ridiculous that it makes sense.
We were watching a bit of the Live at Lee's yesterday, and my wife noticed that each member was wearing a different shade of on stage, but all the same.
Yes.
So pants, top and bottoms were the same shade roughly.
Yeah.
But each member that's purposeful? That's a little purposeful thing?
No, we didn't plan that.
Oh, that's just the way it worked out? That's hilarious.
Just kidding.
So Dan's wearing all blue, Carson's wearing all red. That's hilarious.
We planned it. We planned it.
Where I was coming from with that, though, is, and again, none of my business, but could you potentially, given who's on this record, could the outfit back you up to open some shows sometimes?
I mean, ostensibly, yeah. I mean, that seems to be the plan, depending on just what happens with the outfit and everything in the future. Yeah. But that is the plan. The deal is kind of to, like Carson had Still Life, and obviously when you release a record, you need to tour the record. So it made sense for her to open, obviously. Keep everyone, it's the most practical decision. We're all in the same band, so, just flip the switch and, do her material, then we do outfit stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's what made sense for these last two tours. So I'm hoping that, in the future there might be a sort of collaboration where I open the show and then outfit follows.
Okay. That's awesome.
But we'll see. It's a lot to ask of everybody.
No, I know. Absolutely. It's a marathon. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to pry. I just thought, or potentially give you an amazing idea. I just thought I would throw it out there because I know it's not unprecedented for something like that to happen. Okay. You're also on Twitter and stuff, I think.
I am.
Yeah. Okay.
Twitter's JR Julianna Sings.
Yeah, that's going to be easy to remember. I'll try to link to as many of these things as I can for the podcast listeners so they can just click on it and find you and all that stuff. Julianna, if we can go out on a song from All Blue right now, could you pick one and tell us why it came to mind?
Oh my gosh, which one do I choose? I would like to go out on Isn't It a Pity? You brought that up.
I did.
It's one of my favorites.
Anything in particular you want to say about it before we hear it?
Well, I have a wild mind and penchant for throwing weird words in.
I hope I have not made you self-conscious about
creating
these penchants you have.
You have not. You have not.
Okay.
I think if anything, you've just made me realize, like, maybe it isn't like not normal, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't give myself enough credit. So
it's completely idiosyncratic, and you've got such a beautiful voice, and I can hear your heart in all these songs too. So I just want to say Thanks. It's resonated with me and all the members of my family that have been hearing your record playing in the house. So it does mean a lot, and I'm happy to go out on this. So from the beautiful new album All Blue, This is Isn't It a Pity? Julianna, thank you so much for making time for me, as I said earlier, and for being you, and for, all these things. I wish you the best luck in the future, and I hope we talk again soon.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Isn't it a shame? Spring has risen over this gate. Memory in motion, a carpenter of sound. Awakening my ears, lays my body down. One look left, don't look right. I might catch your eye, and then I slip away. Swinging hammer, a windmill of a force is what keeps us both apart. Caught up in your membrane, amoeba cradle shell. I'm crying on the inside like a water swells. One look left, one look right. I might catch your lies, and then I'll slip away. Isn't it a shame? The flowers in our garden have bloomed and shed their fray. Astral projection of a future in our rush. Like one bird in a hand is worth two in the brush.
Well, that was a fun one for me. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Julianna Riolino on this, the 700? I said 20th. I went back 700 episodes. 724th episode of Creative Control is what this is, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you can't find an episode that you've heard about and you're looking for it and you just can't find that thing, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my monthly newsletter, which I should do for this month. Good reminder, Vish. Good job there. Haven't done that yet. I'm going to do that now. Anyway, why was I talking about this? Oh yeah, if you want to learn about any of that stuff I just said, go to my website, which is vishkhanna.com. And like Creative Control on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me directly on Twitter and on Instagram at vishkhanna. Also, visit patreon.com/creative control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. $6 or more a month grants you access to exclusive content, including getting access to episodes earlier than everyone who does not donate $6 to the show's Patreon. Also, if you're interested in receiving a Creative Control t-shirt, message me on Patreon and I'll get you one while supplies last. As I say often, you don't have to start with $6. You could start with $1, $2, $3, $4, even $5. And that's amazing. That's very generous of you. You can do more than $6. You can go $18 a month or $26, $39. I mean, whatever you want. And you can always change it anytime. You can also pay for a whole year, and that covers you and me. Anyway, lots of options there. Please consider doing that to support the show and keep the show going. It is a fair amount of work, but so is everything, right? Anyway, patreon.com/creative control if you'd like to contribute. Thanks again to Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee, all of which are located in Guelph, Ontario, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. All of these folks provide in-kind support for this show. Thanks as always to my dear old friend Jim Guthrie. He lends me some music for this show, and you can learn more about Jim at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode with Julianna. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will check out her music and this beautiful new album, All Blue, via You've Changed Records. She's great. That label's great. Everything's great. So, yeah. Also, please subscribe to the podcast or follow it and tell your friends all about it and spread the word about Creative Control. It means a lot to me when I see that. It's very gratifying, I have to say. Even the little things like that. It's not little, it's big. Anyway, I'm rambling and babbling. I will talk to you very soon. Be well. Bye for now.